my Kenvians, PapaKen here, and I'm bringing you episode 4, I think? Yes, episode 4 of Discovering Torchwood. And, well, the episode's name is Cyberwoman, which left me with hopes. Oh, God. I'm just gonna say it, this is the worst episode of any of them that I've seen so far. It has some, the unfortunate thing is it has some pretty cool ideas and some really interesting moments and some moments that took me by surprise, but oh god, it for me it felt worse than day 1, the one with the pink cloud of sexy doom. But we'll get into why I felt that way, but first let's start with some happy notes. How about it? Starting with my favorite parts of the episode. And my first favorite part, well, I guess kind of technically my first and second that I wrote down here are one part, so I'll combine them. So my first favorite part of this episode was Ianto's secret / Lisa, the Cyberwoman, who we find out is his girlfriend. And I don't know, I found the fact that Ianto had been keeping that secret for so long, and throughout the episode I questioned it. I was just kind of like, surely this would have come up before. But then I thought about it, and really any of the interactions he's had with the group in the past has been very brief. He's not part of the core group that goes on missions. It's like Jack said in the first episode, he cleans up after them. He cleans up their messes and all that stuff. He's transportation. So I guess I can see how it would be kind of easy for him to keep that secret, because he doesn't seem to have any personal connections with anyone there. At least it again, thinking back, it doesn't seem that way. But then we find this person that he does have this personal connection with, Lisa, who is a Cyberwoman, or mostly converted Cyberwoman. And yeah, I just found that to be really intriguing and a really interesting aspect of this episode. That brings us to my next favorite part, is when they basically establish the Canary Wharf and, the Doctor Who connection there. Now, obviously, we already know about the connections there because of the Cybermen that attacked and the fact that this is Torchwood. We had experienced Torchwood before, or Torchwood 1, which is the one that got taken down. And I believe Jack made mention of them in the first episode. I'm almost positive he did, yes. So yeah, just establishing that connection that this episode has with the Doctor Who series, Doctor Who show, I guess you would say. I like that that aspect of the episode. I can't talk apparently right now. Moving on, my next favorite part of this episode came up when they get Lisa to look at herself in the mirror, or I guess more accurately in a reflective surface in this case. But the idea of how torn this incomplete cyber person is, or this Cyberwoman is, I just found that to be a really intriguing idea that I don't know that Torchwood will do it anymore, but I think it would be really interesting for them to explore that more, because the purpose of the Cybermen is to upgrade, to eliminate human emotion, to delete the old and upgrade to the new, to upgrade to Cybermen. So Lisa there, an incomplete Cyberman, sees themselves, and they just see themselves, or she sees herself as disgusting, as an abomination, essentially. And again, it's like the reason why that's one of my favorite parts, other than just, it was a legitimately dramatic moment. I would love for that to be something that they explore more in the future. I really, really do. Again, they probably won't, but whether it's this show or another one related to the BBC, I would love to see someone take that subject and expand on it to find out what would happen if we have these like full Cybermen among incompletes. Like, how would that work? Would the Cybermen just eliminate them like the Daleks, or like the pure Daleks eliminated the impure Daleks during I guess it was during the beginning of Moffat's run. Yeah, when we got like the Easter egg colored Daleks. But yeah, so again, that's just a subject I would love to see expanded on. But moving on from there, my next favorite part of this episode is the fact that Jack takes a metaphorical hit or two from Lisa, and it's revealed essentially they didn't go into whether or not they found out that he just can't die, but they see that Jack should have been dead, but they saw that he didn't die. So obviously something's going on there. It raises some questions, but again, I don't think that they, at least not yet, have fully explored the aspect of revealing to Owen and Tosh and Ianto, I guess, that Jack can't die. Or maybe they just kind of get it at this point. I don't know. It wasn't really explained at that point. All Jack said is, basically it's hard for him to die, and he's very stubborn, essentially. So yeah, I like that part of the episode. Now my next favorite part, this falls more into an interesting / surprising aspect of this episode, was that span of time when Gwen and Owen are making out / snogging, which is, while I love that word, it's not one that I think I'll ever be able to get used to saying. And then, while seemingly trying to resuscitate Ianto, Jack starts making out with him. And the way I'm talking about it, it seems like it should be an annoyance, but it's not. It took me by surprise, and I did appreciate the fact that Owen and Gwen kind of bickered about it back and forth after, they were no longer in immediate danger. But yeah, just that scene raises a lot of questions. But it's understandable, you think you're about to die from a cyber person, why not? It makes enough sense as it is. It's like, even though Gwen was the one that, questioned it, and, she seemed to be pretty into it, but Owen was definitely one that instigated it. Like you said, it's like the dying wishes, or the wishes of a last act of a dying man, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that was just a very interesting moment, to say the least. But moving on, my final favorite part of this episode was Angry Jack. My God. Now, we've seen the man, in the mode of, okay, we're all about business right now. We've seen him serious. But to the best of my recollection, I've never seen him angry. And by God, Bowerman did an amazing job in being Angry Jack. I mean, especially during the scenes where he's holding the gun to Ianto. And just the entire segments that followed afterward, just seeing him angry and not just commanding but yelling at the others. It was just phenomenal. So I would say that is definitely my absolute favorite part of this episode is Angry Jack. So yeah. And now we come to my annoyances with this episode. And I actually don't think I wrote them all down now that I think about it. But yeah, I'll read off all the ones that I do have written down, and then if I think of any others, I'll throw them in there as well. But my first annoyance with this episode, why the loud screaming basketball game at the beginning? Like, that was one of the weirdest ways they could have possibly opened this episode. That's the weirdest way they could have opened any episode. Mostly because, despite the screaming, they didn't look that into it. And I don't know, it just, everything about that scene just felt fake. Except for Ianto just having this very, strange emotional, or just we couldn't tell what was going on with him at the time. But everything else about that scene was just wrong or off, or however you want to put it. It drove me crazy. It really annoyed me. Anyway, moving on from there, my next annoyance is the explanation of the different cyber body. And the fact that clearly they just wanted to show off the figure of this woman, which I will say was very nice. It was a very nice figure. But they say that, okay, I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact words, but they ran out of materials to create the Cybermen and transfer the brains, so they started converting the human body itself. Okay. I mean, we can go with that, I guess. But it seems, again, to me, it seems like, had it even gotten halfway converted, which I think it's kind of determined that it's at least halfway, or she's at least halfway converted into a cyber person, I'm sorry, a Cyberman. At least part of the body should have been fully converted, wouldn't you think? It was literally, it was I was gonna say a bikini, but it was basically a bodysuit with gigantic holes. Nothing was complete. It was just very stylized, and it was a strange choice, to say the least. And I probably even could have forgiven it somewhat had there not been very visible material underneath the Cyberman armor. Whenever she's facing away from camera, that booty's in a bathing suit. And it's basically got little detachable bits of armor around it. And yeah, I'm going on way too long about this, but just the explanation of the different cyber body, it's dumb. It could have worked had they gone with a better design overall. But yeah, just the way they did it here just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So yeah, okay, my third annoyance with this episode is that now it appears that she had been down there, that Ianto had taken her down there and had been hiding her in that room since before the show started. And it's established, it was either the previous episode or the one before that, can't remember exactly, that Jack basically lives there, and he doesn't sleep. So, for however long Ianto has had her down there, you're telling me that Jack never noticed once. Not once. And the amount of time it would take for Ianto to get all of the equipment down there, to get her down there, to, with her instructions, retrofit the conversion unit into a life, not only a life support, but a working converter that is taking power from the system. Not to the extent that obviously when a conversion is actually taking place, but you're telling me that in that entire time, no one else ever went to that room. No one. And it has windows. It'd be one thing. It'd be one thing if there were no windows and it was just like, it was like a secret room. But no, it's part of the complex with windows. Small windows, yes, but windows all the same. And you're telling me that in all that time, Jack, let alone anyone else, but especially Jack, never noticed. We have a lot more here too. Not even halfway done at this point. My next annoyance with this episode is that when Lisa gets Gwen into the Cyberman conversion unit and she activates it, and you know all the bolts are surging through Gwen's body, and the little stabby, slashy thing comes out of the ceiling with its glorious graphics, which I'm not going to comment on, but that, when the doctor who was there before and got killed, whose name I don't remember because I didn't even think to write it down, like, he's screaming in pain and being dissected essentially within seconds. Like, I'll give them some leeway, and between the time that the power actually gets activated when the doctor is on that machine, they have 15, maybe 20 seconds before all the screaming starts. But when Gwen is on there and it has been activated and she is in pain, and then the slicey dashy thing comes out and we're waiting on Tosh to get to the circuit breaker or whatever it was to turn off the power, that's close to a minute. That's between 30 seconds and a minute of time that they're expecting me to believe that that machine didn't even get one slice into Gwen. Not even one. Just that she would have at the very least been hurt. Not a lot, maybe. I mean, again, it's like it could have just been like, it just started when the power went off. But no, they're expecting me to believe that in that extended period of time that nothing except for the electricity happened to her. Can't do it. Okay, my next annoyance with this episode, and this has to do with inconsistencies, and this episode is not the only one guilty of this. This is not the only show guilty of this. But when Jack has his gun, Lisa uses this, it's not exactly a laser, but it's something that it's a projectile of some sort that hurts Jack and causes him to drop the gun. Maybe it only affected the gun itself, which is like the slightest possibility I could give this. But still, it clearly hurt him when she used that. So why did she never use it again at all? Why at no point, even when she's within feet of people, does she not use the lasers? I mean, it's one thing for stormtroopers in Star Wars to be shooting and miss, because they're trying. After she uses her whatever it is, and then just doesn't anymore, and just walks like a zombie with electric hands, it brings me back to just kind of like one of my biggest issues with this episode, which is it didn't fully seem like everyone was giving their all in this episode, except for some scenes for sure, like Angry Jack and a few other scenes, but overall, what happened to the lasers / static things, whatever it was supposed to be? But okay, moving on from there, I'm actually going to expand on what I wrote down, and it has to do with the confrontation between Lisa the Cyberwoman and the pterodactyl. Now, I'll get to what I actually wrote down here in a second, but okay. We have a few... Wait, is this a pterodactyl or is this... I think this is Lisa. Anyway, yeah. So we see Lisa deck this pterodactyl in the face. She punches it solidly at least once. So she is clearly quite powerful. But then, all of a sudden, like, it doesn't actually show anything happen, unless I'm forgetting, which is definitely a possibility. But all of a sudden we see her on the ground getting pecked. And again, she's an incomplete Cyberman, so she might not have the full strength. But again, she has the projectile stuff, whatever it was. Why wasn't that used on the pterodactyl even once? And the pterodactyl, while I'm sure it is a very sturdy creature, got punched in the face. Wait, was it the face or was it like this area? I can't remember exactly. But what is seemingly a cybernetically enhanced person, which is metal, which, you know, should have broken something, hurt it at the least. So yeah, just the fact that the pterodactyl was able to take her down at all, found that to be a bit of a stretch. But then the part that I actually did write down, and something that they don't actually touch on, which I'm just kind of left to assume, but did the pterodactyl die? Like, we clearly see Lisa up. It's like, you know, more happens with her throughout the episode. But she's standing up with splotches of ketchup on her. Because it was bright red, come on. And we hear the pterodactyl screech, but we never see it. So the fact that we never see it leads me to believe that it flew away. It may be hurt, but it did fly away. But we're not given any indication as to the actual status of it. They don't, again, unless like it was kind of shown through CGI and I just kind of blurred over it somehow. Is the pterodactyl dead? I don't know. I wish someone had told me. I guess if it appears in a later episode, I'll know. But until then, it's just... Okay, so, Lisa wasn't dead, but she still had the barbecue sauce on it, or whatever, or on her. But the pterodactyl just flew away. Or she did... Man, I don't know. It's just... The leap of logic just isn't there for me right now. And... Finally... And this is the last one I wrote down, and probably the last annoyance I'll actually come up with for now. If I think of another, I'll throw it in. But what happens at the end with Lisa transferring her brain to the human's brain, like out of an already upgraded body, like it's incomplete, but an already upgraded body into just a regular human being's brain, while still having the intention for both her and Ianto to be upgraded together. That's not how Cybermen work. And again, I don't know all the mythology behind them. I don't know all of the details, but it's pretty friggin' clear that's not how Cybermen work. It makes no sense at all. None. For her to have removed her brain from her already partially upgraded body, damaged, yes. So, well, okay, so that's one argument for it, that the body was damaged. So, okay, I'll give it that. But still, Cybermen don't go from a human body to another human body. And just think about all of the materials that are around. There was more than enough for a Cyberman to put together a body. I have no doubt. Even if it's not a perfect body, a body all the same. And again, it just all boils down to, for me, unless I'm mistaken, or maybe I'm just wrong, but that's not how Cybermen work. It's just not. Still had the goal of becoming upgraded. But for me, it just doesn't make sense at all, that a Cyberman would place its brain into just a regular human being without had they at least, in that process, had the new girl's body, or the pizza girl's body, been upgraded, even just a little bit, that would have been one thing. But literally all it was is just like, she took the top of the head off, put the brain in, and then stitched it back up. No cybernetic enhancements. Nothing. And it just... It doesn't make any sense, and it just drives me crazy. So yeah, moving on from there. If you have any of your own favorite parts of the episode, any of your own annoyances, please do let me know. If you are able to find, and well, I'll ask that question in a little bit. Anyway, moving on, as far as questions go for this episode, are we going to see a return of Cybermen at all? Will we see this idea expanded on at all? I don't know. That's why it's a question. So yeah, well, I guess it's two questions. One, will we see Cybermen again in this show in the future? And two, will the idea of an incomplete Cyberman in this form of sorts be expanded on in the future? Because I'm legitimately interested. I was going to make another argument, but I decided against it just because I don't feel like hurting my brain anymore. But as far as tracks of the episode go, didn't really have... I think I was a little bit too frustrated to really pay attention to anything significant as far as the music goes. I do remember that during that really weird scene with Owen and Gwen kissing and Jack making out with Ianto's almost dead body, the music was really intense there, so yeah, let's make that the track of the episode, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I've been kind of like punched in the gut by this episode. But continuing on, as far as quotes go, I honestly struggled over this one, trying to come up with a really good quote, because in my mind there were two people that delivered some of the best lines in this episode. The first of which being Jack, when he's in Angry Jack mode. So, yeah, in my... let's just say the runner-up is everything that Angry Jack says in this episode. Let's go with that. As for what I've basically decided on, and it's not a straight quote, obviously, but the mention when Ianto refers to Jack as a monster. Just from his own personal perspective. Just, there was something about the gravity of those statements that just felt like a real punch to the gut. Again, knowing what we do know of Jack so far, I'm sure I'm going to learn more about him and possibly things I don't like as the show goes on, but knowing what I do know about him, that just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like the right way to describe Jack, but at the same time, what he's doing, while I personally think it's what needed to be done, and it actually clearly was what needed to be done, I mean, I can completely understand how someone can view that as monstrous, as without love, as not human. So yeah, again, not a complete quote exactly, but Ianto's mentions of referring to Jack as a monster, definitely the lines of the episode. Let's go with that. But okay, moving on from there, my theory for this episode is that what happened with Owen and Gwen might have some repercussions down the line. They might not be significant. They could be more subtle in the sense that it's going to affect her relationship with Reese. But maybe not explored so much as, like, for all I know, Owen and Gwen will probably never kiss again, ever in the show. They may, like, literally have no real physical attraction to each other. With Gwen, I don't see how that's possible because she's gorgeous, but yeah, I think that's the case. Is what happened is going to have some repercussions for Gwen and Reese down the line, because something about that is going to affect Gwen. Possibly. I don't know. Or maybe it'll affect Owen in some way. I have no idea. And then, and I'm making this assumption just because of how bizarre it was, but I can't help but feel like Jack's deep, impassioned kiss while seemingly trying to resuscitate Ianto will have some repercussions as well, because I could be wrong, but I'm fairly sure that Ianto might have noticed that. I mean, he was unconscious at first, so maybe not. But that's something else that I feel like will have some repercussions for the team, or at least possibly Jack and Ianto. Again, I don't know, just all theories, just kind of putting it out there, and we'll see what happens down the line. As for overall thoughts on this episode, I mean, I made it very clear at the beginning, and it has not changed at all. This is the worst episode that I've seen so far. It's, now, given it's only 4 episodes in, so I'm sure we may come across even worse. But, yeah, just, I mean, considering what they had to work with, Like, the last supposedly surviving Cyberman slash Cyberwoman from the Canary Wharf battle, or the Battle of Canary Wharf, whatever it was called. They had so much they could have done with that, and I feel like it was an opportunity that was just really missed. They didn't, like, it was a good idea, but they didn't execute well at all. So, yeah, I guess kind of in a way that's something it has in common with Day One. It's like, you know, it had a really intriguing idea, but the execution just wasn't up to snuff. But this episode by far is just, it's definitely the weaker of the two, and it is not an episode I think I will probably ever revisit. Again, unless I just feel like going through the show again, or if Jill wants to watch some of the episodes with me, I don't know. But as far as just rewatching episodes for fun, I don't see this episode making the top 50. I don't even know how many episodes there are in this entire show. So yeah. Alright, so rant over. Let out the bad, let out the bat, let's bring in the good, and let's move on to the next episode of Discovering Torchwood, which is going to be on Small Worlds. And I'm interested to see whether or not they go literal with that, because, I mean, you know, if you've seen Men in Black, you know, the little tiny, well, actually that was a small universe, but it could also be like, you know, tiny worlds, tiny planets. It's kind of like, you know, hidden in a marble, something like that. I don't know, I'm making things up as I go. Or, you know, what direction they're going to go with that. Or, well, small world in the sense of, like, you know, maybe they start to establish, like, connections with different characters within Torchwood. Like, some of the secondary characters start to, like, connections between them and Tosh or Owen or some of the others start to come up. So, yeah, actually, going on that theory, I'm actually definitely looking forward to the next episode and hopefully liking it a lot more than this one. But alright everyone, I'm Papa Ken. Thank you for listening to me ramble for God knows how long on this episode. Hope you all enjoyed this. As always, please do leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, let's end this one. Until next time everyone, I'm Papa Ken, and later days. Hello, all my wonderful dear Kenvians. I'm sucking up to you right now, I don't know why.